Welcome to Treasure Valley Podcast, a LowerGentry Studios production. This week on our podcast, we are sitting down with Wes Schlag, a.k.a. Wes Schlagenhoff, who is a musician, an actor, a writer, DJ, and
teacher,
dapper dresser,
father.
There's a lot of things that you are.
I do some stuff.
Thanks for coming on and playing the set for us
Of course.
for our Treasure Valley Live series. You have a unique vibe with your music.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about your lyrics and how you decide to write those?
Oh man, no. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. I don't ever really. I love story songs. I love like John Prine and Townes Van Sant and so many others, obviously. And I enjoy the idea of putting that into music. I've always been a storyteller or however you want to call it. And I don't really know exactly like how or why. Sometimes it's just like sometimes I feel like I think I know what I'm writing about, and then like 3 months later I'm like, nope, I didn't know what I'm writing about. Now I do. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's almost like, this is going to sound so stupid, but sometimes it's almost like the songs that I write like tell the future of my own life.
Oh. So is that clairvoyance?
Yes, I think that's
so. You're
the word.
clairvoyant.
Oh, I'm here too. Elliot Norton, I'm here as well.
Yeah, well,
Elliot's also here.
We're videotaping is on top of this, so I just assume people are going to see you in the corner.
Well,
unless
no,
I
on
decide
Spotify they can't see the video though. So.
Yeah, you can upload video to Spotify.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are we gonna do it?
I'm going to crop you out.
Okay. Sweet.
So I guess it's good that you introduced yourself so that people don't think that the mic cord that's running into oblivion is for no reason.
Yeah, makes sense.
Can't crop me out. I'm in the dead center. You have 4 hours.
Anyway, just to kind of follow up what you just said, I guess I kind of understand that because sometimes when you're creating something, you don't have the perspective on it until you like achieve it later, and then sometimes you're actually writing for your future self, not your like current self, because all acts of artistic expression are kind of like striving, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and people generally speaking, me more specifically speaking, I sometimes it takes something to completely slap me in the face for me to like wake up a little bit. So sometimes I think I'm writing about something, and then like a month will go by and I'm like, oh nope, I was writing this about something completely different. So yeah, that's a lot of the songs that's coming out on this new record are just songs over the last probably from 2020 until now, leading up, and different relationships and just what was going on, obviously, it goes without saying, and being kind of holed up in a house and having gratefully a lot of time on my hands to kind of work through some of this stuff. And I'm just excited for everyone to get to hear it.
Right on. So these are pandemic children?
Some of them, I would say most of them,
right
probably. One of them titled Plagiarizer, that's about me being accused of plagiarism at my job and how humiliating that was, and how just you feel like you have a stink on you after that. You know what I mean?
That's a wild story. Can you share more about it, or?
It's hard to share, but it was a company that I worked for, and I was completely out of my element. I was a writer for many years, working in Los Angeles, started in comedy, and then when all the yucks dried up, and Wessie had to get a real job, I started working in like journalism for a company, and I was just completely in over my head, and I didn't fully understand, stupidly and embarrassingly enough, the depths of plagiarism and what could be construed as plagiarism, even if you truly believe that they were kind of in your own words, if that makes any sense. And yeah, that was that song is interesting because it's probably one of my more fun sounding songs.
Yeah.
But a very, very painful song. But you know,
Wait a minute, how do
everyone
you
comes out of
get
it.
accused of plagiarism as a journalist? Do you just not cite your source correctly, or do you attribute ideas to yourself that are like paraphrasing ideas from another person?
New age, and excuse me, before we go any further, I am not and was never a journalist ever. I was more of like a news writer. I was like on a desk writing like 12 stories a day. So it was more like
Oh my God.
culminating stories from the internet, aggregating things in this new age world.
You were part of the problem.
Of course,
Clickbait.
absolutely. Well,
Yeah. Was it just a lot of clickbait?
no. To the company's defense, it was a legitimate like tech and business.
Did you start the war in Ukraine?
Yes.
That was your fault.
But yeah, no. To their credit, they are a legit company, and a lot of really talented people who worked there, and I was like this comedy guy, and I came over in a because they hired me to like make things funny, right, or like be voicey, but it's like a real news site, so it was like this weird world, and so there were things that I was writing based off of other articles that I was kind of like poking fun at and using certain words that I didn't cite correctly, because in a world like that, I didn't know how to, how that really worked. And so then when we got like an actual editor and chief come in, he was like, "You are a criminal and
You're going to
you're
jail.
done."
Do not pass go.
Yeah.
Do not collect $200.
Yeah, it was
That's-
humiliating.
So you were doing, but it sounds to me you were more in charge of a satirical type of voice.
That's what I understood the job to be. But the problem when you try to bring someone on to do the funny, but you also want to exist in the world of like hard news, doesn't really
That doesn't really fit.
translate.
Also,
Yeah,
why would you want that?
right. It was more like they were trying to be like edgy, like we're voicey, we tell it how it is. And in reality, it was just like, well, I'm just like, the whole nature of the job is me stealing from other people's articles.
And
You
put
know
a
what I
twist
mean?
on it.
Yeah,
Finding
and
something
putting a
that's funny.
twist on it,
And
and
then you missed a quotation mark.
sure, yeah. I mean, probably.
I wonder if Weird Al ever gets accused of
He does all the time.
plagiarism.
Yeah. So maybe me starting this whole songwriting thing was my complete punk rock rejection of ever doing anything that wasn't completely my own. I don't know, because I wish I did, but when I play live, like I do no covers. I shouldn't say that. I've played like 3 covers, but when you play on the circuits that I play, it's like pretty imperative that you have covers because people want to hear the hits. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They don't want to hear my story songs. Well, they do, though. That's kind of the nice thing about it, is going into places and surprising people with kind of what you're doing and seeing, and kind of sussing out the people who get it. Even if it's for like a very short amount of time. It's cool.
Right on.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a good story.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah, you turned it into a song too.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did.
So it's totally worth it.
Yeah, and it's my dad's favorite, so that's even better.
Nice. You turned it into something your father could be proud of.
Exactly.
Correct.
I think
Is
that's
his-
what life is
his
about.
quote's
Isn't
going to
it?
be on the front of the album. This is the best work you've done so far.
This
buddy.
is the best album I've ever heard, Dad.
Yeah, Wes's father.
Yeah.
Mr. Schlagenhoff.
Oh man.
Cool. So what I want to talk about as well is the differentiation in the music that you perform. Because Milo Bybee is totally different than the tunes that you work on. And I would imagine you have a pretty wide taste in music then, and artistic expression as
Yeah.
well. So how did you get onto the folk type music from the more punk rock?
Sure.
tunes?
That's always been my kind of jam. I mean, when I was a kid, I was growing up and kid, I mean, early teen to late teen phase. I mean, it was definitely like your punk rock and your hardcore and heavy and loud and fast and love that stuff. But you know what? Also, not going to try to Not gonna try to pretend I'm someone I'm not. Loved Blink-182. Loved Sum 41. Loved Newfound Glory. You know what I mean? Good Charlotte. One of my first concerts. Not my first concert, but the first concert that I ever crowd surfed at.
Oh.
And don't mean to keep talking about my parents, but my mom was in the audience. So, and it was definitely humbling to be up in the air, being hoisted up by a bunch of people with pink hair and steel beads around their neck, and seeing my mom in the crowd watching me. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I think I've always loved that kind of music, but I don't know, just something with acoustic. I mean, we as kids we grew up listening to more kind of like AC/DCs and Styx and all that stuff, but then my dad would bust out people like a John Cougar Mellencamp, where he had his pop phase, but he's really, at the end of the day, he's like a folk artist, like, especially if you hear some of his stuff now, which is, for better or worse, just like hard folk, and so I think it kind of started there, and then I think, but really, like, that stuff didn't really hit me until I started listening to like Wilco in the mid 2000s. I mean, Jeff Tweedy is just like, in my opinion, he's probably, I mean, he's my John Prine, you know what I mean? And love John Prine, and God, just can't stop talking about my parents. Shout out to Roy, my stepdad. He was a huge John Prine fan as a kid, and that had to have some impact on me, because yeah, I mean, John Prine is just, you can't beat it. So.
Yeah. Before we started talking on the air officially, you also mentioned that hauling a bunch of equipment and stuff around is a pain in the ass.
That could also be helpful.
Is this kind of a nice liberating type of musical expression to where you can grab your acoustic guitar?
Yeah, how heavy is a harmonica?
It is heavier than you think.
I thought your neck looked pretty buff.
Let me tell you, yes, that is 100% sterling silver, actually. Just so you guys know, and that's not light. So, yeah, no, that could have something to do with it as well. I remember, a lot of it too. I remember sitting in my apartment when I was living in LA, and the album 22 a Million came out by Bon Iver.
Yeah.
And love Bon Iver, but that was like this crazy album, and I had always listened to him, always been a fan, and dug the kind of indie folk stuff that he was doing. But then when that album came out, I was like, these are just like folk songs, but they're like mixed with like electronic music. It was just crazy to me, and so that really, I mean, guitar's always been like a big part of my life, but it's always been there. But I never really decided to do anything really with music until like 2016 when I heard that album, and I was like, which sounds pompous, but I was like, oh my God, I could like do, I mean, what he was doing, which was like big and electric and huge. But then, like, the more I listened to it, I could boil it down to, like, these small folk songs. And so I could start to kind of, like, work through that way. And then I started to listen to him in interviews and talk about how much John Prine was kind of, like, this influence on him. And I was like, yeah, I just started to immediately kind of, like, connect the parallels between the two, no matter how different they are, And I think that was a big part of it. And it was just easy to be able to do it and play my guitar by myself. I came from LA working on a lot of productions and things like that, and I got so burnt out on the fact that like you couldn't just wake up and do it. There was so much pomp and circumstance and red tape and hoops and waiting and all of these things. And so that was when it really got heavy, was when I was just like, it was literally, I was playing guitar and writing songs was like medicine for me at that point in my life, for sure.
I can totally understand that as well. Even doing film stuff that, Elliot and I do film work together, and you can't do that. You can write the script. Elliot can write a script by himself.
Yeah, I can write the script by myself, but then everything else involves lots of scheduling after that. Yeah.
Right.
And waiting and scheduling.
And administration.
And administration.
And if you're doing...
And then trying to talk to the person to remember to go pick up the food at the correct time to bring it back at the right time.
Well, in a script, too. I mean, like, doing that whole thing, it was like... there's no instant gratification with it. You know, you're constantly tinkering and you're constantly working, and it takes so long. And I think for me, like starting to write songs and actually like play them back and hear them and feel kind of where I'm going with them, like the instant gratification for me was just like so important, like off the bat. For sure.
And then you got to enjoy what you're doing while you're doing it.
Totally.
Or else you're just going to get burnt out.
Well, and that's why, you know, the thing I would say I excelled the most at when I was living in California, in LA, was sketch writing, you know, and I think there's something to that as well. You know, it's generally a 3 to 6 page thing. And,
you can bang that out in like an hour.
Yeah,
Or at least a draft of it in an hour.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's how I work, like to a large degree. I mean, I'll roll the sleeves up after a certain point with even songs and kind of get more specific. But stream of consciousness is like, for me, if I can't have that in a creative setting, it kind of like handcuffs me a little bit.
How do you feel about the need to be able to present that in front of people too? I feel like, to me, that's important as far as taking a finished product and kicking it out there, you know, to get feedback.
Presenting it, you mean in like
in any form, like, you know, so for you, you know, being able to sit down,
like
write,
to articulate it, or
so for your music, being able to sit down, work it out, and then take your guitar and go to an open mic, you know, worst case scenario, because you can at least do that and get in front of people and get some interaction.
Absolutely.
Whereas a lot of other endeavors, like you
said, with film, you sit on it for years and then you wait for the opportunity, unless you're just kicking it out on YouTube, which we do a lot of. But,
totally. Yeah. And that's a good thing. Like, I really, like, to answer your question, of course. I mean, I think that's the thing that I love the most about music personally, is that you can eliminate the need to have to present it to other people, because for me, it's just like, it does something to me, for me, you know? And then, but that's the other thing, is like, I'm constantly having to remind myself that like these songs that I played today, like I've been with these songs for years, you know, and I constantly have to remind myself that no one else has really heard them. I mean, playing around town and gigging and stuff like that, of course, but like, I think that always, whenever I'm like tired of them, that always kind of like re-energizes it, knowing, like, coming here today and being like, I get to share these songs with you guys, you know, like that, like, lead time leading up to this and making sure I'm as tight as I can be, always like kind of reaffirms that, for sure. Yeah,
that's a good point. You get to that point creatively where you do forget where something is, you're so used to it,
totally,
and your interest and the amount of effort that you put into it, and then that push to perfection, if you're living in isolation or just working in isolation,
right,
and not getting any outside input, you can spend 10, 20, 30, 40 more hours on something and only make it a small increment better.
Oh man.
But the minute somebody else sees it, you have a more objective understanding of what it was that you were doing.
Totally. And just seeing the way that people react or kind of feed off of what it is that you're doing. I mean, it kind of all goes into one big weird soup or something.
Well, I think it's really cool that you're doing the solo stuff.
Thanks.
That's super, super awesome. What is your plan? How can people follow you? I forgot to mention that at the beginning of this thing.
That's cool. Yeah,
I think you usually do it in the middle, right?
Oh, I guess so.
It's perfect.
That's perfectly. People usually scroll to the middle of any podcast,
and like, let me go to the 50% mark and find out how I get the information on how to follow.
Only Chuck makes perfect mistakes.
Yes, we're halfway through. It's time. The timer's going off in my pocket.
Yeah, right.
You have an album coming out.
Yes.
Of all your material.
I do.
And you're on Instagram and...
Instagram mainly. That would be the thing. You'll see I'll share some stuff to Facebook. I am not... I can't say I'm not on Facebook, because I do have one, but I stay away from it as much as I possibly can. Mostly just because I was on all
your parents?
Mostly my parents. Yeah, they won't let me. They'd said it's bad. No, mostly I just like kind of, one day I was like, I got to make a choice here. I can't be on 4 different social media platforms. It just takes up too much time. And
good point.
And so I kind of whittled it down to Instagram mostly for the music aspect. And,
Okay.
and now with like some of the films that I'm doing coming out, which I've been really lucky to be a part of coming out, it's just that's the best platform I can find to like kind of like do promotion that doesn't fully make me feel like a jerk.
Yeah, Instagram is a little bit less horrible to scroll through.
I don't know. I think they're both equally horrible.
Yeah, and I'm sure they are. I really can't really give an articulate answer as to why.
I think Instagram, you don't have the level of writing involved, which Facebook you have so there's a lot more opportunities on Facebook to get into arguments with people,
Right.
which I really don't appreciate or like.
No, I think you're totally right. There's like you can just for me, there's something kind of nice about doing something and then just putting it on Instagram, and it kind of goes out into the ether. And then if people want to message you about it, they can.
Yeah, but that rarely happens.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and that's fine. Just the fact, right now, that's the thing that kind of like keeps part of it going, is just knowing that I'm like putting some of that out to get people interested and to hear, kind or bad things, but just like mostly just getting people to be in the know of the stuff that I'm doing,
Right on. So you have 4 tunes that you played for us.
Yeah.
And how many tunes are going to be on this album?
It's going to be, I'm not positive yet, it's going to be 8 or 9.
And is it the album, does that have a lot more instrumentation? Is it acoustic?
It's kind of mixed. There's probably... So 2 of the songs I played today have a lot more instrumentation. I kind of like repurposed them into more like acoustic sounding songs.
Okay.
And then the other 2 that I played, 2 of the other ones that I played are pretty much hard acoustic. I would say it's like 50-50 actually.
Okay.
And I kind of wanted it that way. I love your like the really, really like raw cuts of like some of Bob Dylan's like hits, of him like literally like messing up and be like, can we take that again? Like I love that stuff. I could listen to like an entire album of him messing up because it makes me feel better about myself.
Well, Bob Dylan is the dude to follow. You want to feel better about anything.
Yes.
Guitar playing, harmonica, singing.
Yeah, but that's
other than lyric writing.
But that's what's so magical about him though, man. He's so raw, but then there's some clips, and it's kind of like, we can go on a tangent here with the Grateful Dead, but I'll get back to that in a second. But like, then there's some audio of Bob Dylan like hitting some of the coolest harmonica like solos I've ever heard, and they're like magical. You're like, how could he have possibly done that and played the guitar? At the same like. So it's this weird like thing, and for him or for me, that keeps me continuing to do music because I'm constantly the person that's like, how do musicians never mess up? Like how are they so perfect all the time?
Yeah.
And obviously it's takes and whatever you want to.
And then Bob Dylan has that just flipped. It's just like usually bad. And then
It's
all of a sudden
so
it's like, wow, look at him.
But
Yeah.
again, and that's the thing with the Grateful Dead, huge Grateful Dead fan. But if you look up some of their live shows on YouTube and listen to them, it's like, where are these guys? What's happening right now? Like, they're so bad. Again, most of them great.
Yeah.
Take it easy, everyone. Everyone just chill out.
And they're one of those rare bands where you can basically find every single thing that they did is on the record.
Yeah.
Because they started allowing people to come in and record, and it turned into a giant
Dude, and I love that. And I think music for me has been that sort of like opening with any kind of art, is like not being too precious. Like when I starting out as a writer and being in the comedy world and all these different areas, like everything just had to be so like laser accurate, and at first I thought I wanted to aspire to that, and then I just realized like either A, I'm not that good, or B, like there's just something so much better to me about like this kind of stream of consciousness thing and capturing it in the moment or not,
Yeah. No, it kind of reminds me of this is kind of a weird metaphor, but professional basketball, because I really follow professional basketball closely.
Sure.
And any player that plays for the NBA, you can cut together like a scissor reel of either them being the worst basketball player or the best basketball player ever.
Yeah.
Like name one. Magic Johnson, I can find 40 plays where he just is a total idiot.
Air balls and
air balls,
throw
messes
yeah.
up, throws me behind his back, and then just like hits himself in the legs and trips and falls over.
Totally.
You know, and
You-
then
the
and then you
only-
can also find like hundreds of plays where he just does amazing shit, and then so
Yeah.
that's what I always think about in terms of artistic expression. It's like you're gonna every new opportunity is a new 24 seconds to like do something great,
Yeah.
and then strive for it, and then sometimes you fuck up and
Totally.
while you're trying to do something cool and you bounce the ball between your legs and then you trip and fall into the first stand.
100%.
You know?
100%. I mean, and that's why I think too, playing in some bands. I mean, I play bass in Milo Bybee, and I mean, that's a great experience. I mean, everyone just kind of like nails their parts as much as they can, and it's pretty loose. I mean, it's not like we're trying to be Chicago over here or anything, you know what I mean? It's just like laser tight in every aspect of
Passing out sheet music.
yeah, straight. Yeah, exactly.
With a conductor.
But then I'm in another band that is so good, and it sounds so stupid to say because we don't have anything to show for it. We haven't played any shows, but we've been playing for a really long time, and these guys are such good musicians. Like, it's like a 6-piece, and so there's some that are like trying to figure things out, and then there's some that are just like beyond advanced, like for anything that I can even do. But they're so picky. Like everything has to be perfect. And it's like, for me, it's like I can kind of see both worlds, but I definitely prefer like the blemished imperfection version a little more.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the music is a lot more like theater in that sense. But you can even go more unscripted.
Yeah.
It's almost like theater mixed with improv comedy,
Totally.
where that viability is an
But yeah, it's
option.
like the spectrum. You can do
Yeah.
either side.
Yeah, and that on hearing you say that, I mean, getting into and learning kind of the art of improv when I was working as a comedy writer and things like that. That could have been kind of the first foray into it, I remember when I first got into it, it was like, I remember having an instructor at UCB, and he was just like, you're like, there, it got to when you first start out, you feel like you're amazing. As you go through the program, you start to just like not know up from down, and I remember him saying like, this is good. Like, you're rewiring your brain to like not think so much, you know what I mean? And just like kind of let it flow through you a little bit, and kind of whatever happens ends up happening. And the more you do it, the better you get at that kind of controlled chaos, I guess.
So you were trained Upright Citizens Brigade Theater? Is that?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
and
That's my.
Yes, and
That's probably, besides what's the new sketch comedy show that's on Netflix? Tim Robinson. But Upright Citizens Brigade from the late 90s, early 2000s is
are you talking about
probably
the sketch comedy
so
show?
good.
yeah,
So
that's
good.
probably my favorite sketch comedy show that has ever existed.
it's so good.
And you can't get it anymore.
No, you can kind of find some stuff on YouTube a little bit, but like, yeah, I mean, and by the way, like those 4 main members, was it 4? Mm-hmm. I mean, Matt
Amy
Besser,
Poehler.
Amy Poehler,
Yeah.
Ian, of course, I'm gonna forget his name.
2 of them went and worked on Conan O'Brien.
Yeah, oh yeah, I mean, I think they were all
Yeah.
all over Conan O'Brien. Ian, I can't remember his name. He was like one of the founders. I mean, he was like the head writer of Key and Peele, which is like
Oh, okay.
also one of the greatest sketch shows of
Oh, right
all
on.
time. Yeah. Like, those guys are just so brilliant.
Yeah, the other ones besides Amy Poehler, it's like I see their face and I understand who
Amy
they are.
Poehler, Matt Besser, Ian. It's going to kill me. He does jazz hands in the movie Bring It On. Or Spirit Fingers.
Spirit Fingers.
Oh,
It's
okay.
him.
Yeah, yeah.
He was in
Oh,
Veep
he's
too. Right?
so good.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's so good. So funny. But yeah, I mean.
So you were trained in sketch comedy by the Upright Citizens Brigade.
Yeah.
All of those people too. They were all in a room with him. Amy
They were.
Poehler and-
All of them.
yeah.
I know them personally.
Especially Ian, whose last name escapes us.
It's fine.
We're on a first name basis.
Yeah. No, that was a fun time. I mean, kind of something, like I said, I think that probably was an early like, I don't know, laid the early groundwork for kind of the way that I work creatively now, which is very much stream of consciousness and trying to kind of like sculpt it into something that seems halfway
Yeah.
decent and like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you do have to work on that though too. It's a different skill set.
Yeah.
You know, so if somebody's just learning how to play a guitar or learning how to sing or something along those lines.
Yeah, you don't just like, here's a guitar, go ahead, stream of conscience out. You know,
Totally.
play whatever you want to. It's like, no, you got to know.
You gotta have a baseline.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. Yes.
Baseline understanding. Take a
Yes.
couple of lessons and then go ahead and stream consciousness.
Well,
and-
that's what's always so funny. I always hate when people ask me how long I've played the guitar because, like, I've been playing the guitar for a really long time, and I should be so much like if you break it down from like the standpoint of like practice makes perfect, like I should be so much better than I am at the guitar.
I've just been doing a lot of stream of consciousness.
Just a lot of streams, just slip streams, baby. Don't bother me. I'm in it.
Well, I mean I totally understand that actually because within the last year I decided to spend some time on music theory, which has been really eye-opening. I don't know if you've ever delved or gone into that down that rabbit hole.
I've delved.
Okay, yeah, and it's pretty nuts. And then you start to see all that technical ability and really interesting stuff that people can come up with when it comes to chord structures and writing chords around melodies. But then that's when you start to also get exposed to elevator music.
Yeah.
Because you can watch some of these people play and they're technically brilliant guitarists and there is no soul.
Yeah.
No soul behind
Right.
it. It's
Quick
just
segue. His new favorite musician is Kenny G. So-
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
so
Hey.
music theory turned me into a Kenny G fan.
But that is what's crazy about music theory. That's the other side of the coin that I found myself relating to. It was like just like music theory like perfectly explains why people are drawn to the specific way music is played. You know what I mean? From chord structures or anything. It's like reining that in, and it's like your elevator music. It's like this is just like all the fat is trimmed, is
Yep.
cut completely out of it, and every note is just something that is stimulating to the person that's in that elevator.
Yeah.
And that's incredible too. I mean, sheesh.
Oh, man. I've never heard such a spirited defense of Muzak.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's not easy to make elevator music.
It's true. One of my favorite it's a Island Sushi on Fairview, actually. We're getting real local. This is a local podcast. Island Sushi.
Treasure Valley podcast.
Treasure Valley podcast. Island Sushi. I love going there at lunch by myself and eating a big bowl of ramen or sushi or whatever. And they always, someone there is an Impractical Jokers fan because it's always on the TV. Impractical Jokers from True TV or whatever that's on, you know?
I've never heard that.
You guys have to know
I
Impractical Jokers.
think I've seen an episode.
It's like silly. It's almost like improv games, but there's like mics, and so they're like they're feeding things for the other person to say. It's kind of it's like I don't know. It's like
It's a
Candid
spin-off
Camera
from
kind of stuff.
spin-off from Candy Camera. Ashton
Yeah.
Kutcher used to do that one show. Yeah, one of those types.
They're these like
Gotcha.
Jersey boys. They're hilarious. I mean, don't get me wrong. They are legitimately funny. But I love going there, eating food, and watching that because they're always playing like music on in the background. And
With
something about it, I'm just like
with
this
closed
is-
captioning.
No, not even captions. That's
Just
the best
music,
part.
and
Yeah.
then you get to guess what they're saying.
Really, and it's just like
pretty
this
awesome.
is perfect. This is what I want. What do I want for my birthday? That's what I want.
Music that was written as a score to Impractical Jokers.
Exactly.
Perfect.
They did it intentionally. Maybe the person that's the DJ at the restaurant is trying to figure out something.
They know
was-
exactly what they're doing.
There's a conspiracy going on with music and that's not sketch comedy. That's not that type of show. Gotcha shows.
Gotcha shows. It's a little
Gotcha shows.
sketchy.
Yeah.
It's all
Candy
the
camera show.
It's all the above.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
hey, thanks Wes for coming on.
Of course. Yeah.
This has been a very good conversation.
Yeah, I know.
Very
I could-
edifying conversation.
I could keep talking.
Yeah.
I love talking to you guys. It's fun.
Well, we can do it off mic. My
Yeah,
ears
sure.
are getting hot.
Sure. Well, and thank you guys though, for real. Thanks for doing this and having me come on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And your Instagram at
Wes Schlag. WESSCHLAG at West Schlag, Instagram.
And listen to his album and buy it.
And buy it and
Give him money.
Do the thing. Give me all the money. It's called These Are the Days, and it'll be out soon.
Throw money in his guitar case.
Yes, please.
Because you'll be doing that too, hopefully.
Yes.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Right on. Thanks.
Thanks.